Hello, my name's Dr. Mike Scanlon, and I'm going to take us through a short film, somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. And my purpose of this film is to introduce you to the concept and the way that we can use mindfulness. Now, dependent on what you've heard and what you've read, you might be thinking, oh, great, mindfulness. I've heard such a lot about how brilliant this can be, how helpful it can be, how it can transform lives. Or you may be feeling a heavy feeling in your tummy, sort of thinking, oh God, not more mindfulness. Everyone bangs on about this. And, in a way, you're right. It seems to have become the flavor of the month, doesn't it? That, everyone's purporting that mindfulness can help with this and can help with that. Now, in truth, the evidence for mindfulness is really clear. Mindfulness can really help us manage stress. It can help us manage stress, thus enabling us to live a happier, kind of more relaxed life. So it's good for anxiety. And mindfulness also has a very good scientific evidence base for helping people who are struggling with physical pain. The mindfulness we're going to do today, however, is aimed at helping young people cope when times get really rough and we find ourselves struggling. So if you look at the slide, we can see that this chap on my slide, if his body is present in this present moment, yeah, and because his body is present in this present moment, we would assume that his mind is also kind of in touch with where we are. But very often when people, and especially actually young people, get really stressed, what happens is this, is although my body is present in this present moment because it has to be, my mind has gone wondering about what ifs and what might happen. And gosh, if that happens, how will I cope? And it sort of leans forward. And if you imagine yourselves kind of standing still for a moment, maybe even try this, stand up, center yourself, and then keeping your body rigid, if you kind of bent forward, not in the middle, but you kind of lean forward your whole body so that you found yourself wobbling in the future. Well, that's what happens to our brain. It wobbles, it feels uncertain, and it really doesn't like it if we find ourselves stuck in the future, worrying about what might happen. And we call that anticipatory anxiety. And what mindfulness does is it allows us to bring our mind and our body back to the present. And when we're in the present, we feel kind of, yeah, that feels okay. And we feel calmer, and our mind starts to relax a little bit. And almost magically, our breathing changes. So we discover that we can breathe calmly. Our breathing becomes punctuated by gentle breaths in and longer breaths out. And if we take our attention to that breath, as we're going to do in a moment, our breath can become something of an anchor, So mindfulness also really helps if we find ourselves thinking too much about what was happening in the past. And if we find ourselves worrying about what was occurring in the past, then that too makes the brain feel very unsettled and uncomfortable. So again, what we can do is we can re-anchor ourselves back in this present moment. Now, one of the greats of mindfulness is a chap called John Kabat-Zinn. And John defines mindfulness as paying attention deliberately on purpose with no judgment. And if we are in this present moment, we find ourselves able to pay attention to what is actually occurring and to see it as it actually is, rather than that pesky mind of us creating scary mind stories and creating feelings in our body of uncertainty and anxiety. So mindfulness is about being present, about learning a strategy to stop ourselves from worrying about what might be or overdwelling on what has been. Does that make sense? So we're going to do a really lovely, I think, mindfulness meditation now. So I'm just going to slide across and bring up the drop anchor meditation. So the drop anchor meditation is one that you can do when you find yourself struggling, and it's really easy to learn. So in a moment, we're just going to ask you to find a position where you feel comfortable, but not so comfortable that you might fall asleep. So if you're sitting on a chair or on the floor, just kind of straighten your back a bit. Find that mindful half smile, which weirdly tells your brain that everything's safe. And then if you can, just close your eyes or half close your eyes. Or if you're uncomfortable closing your eyes, as lots of people are, just fix your eyes onto a spot on the floor in front of you. Allow them to grow heavy and just rest your eyes there. So in a moment, we're going to start this meditation. And the beauty of the drop anchor meditation is that if you're ever in the middle of a troublesome time, a real place of struggle, you can stop. Take you somewhere quiet and say, right, I'm just going to drop anchor for a moment, which will bring me back into this present moment, which will restore calm and which will allow me to have the joy of making better decisions because my thinking is more concentrated and I'm thinking in a way that helps me rather than hinders me. So just placing your hands very gently in your lap, let's go into this first meditation, the drop anchor. So I just ask you to close those eyes, half close them or fix them on a spot on the floor, and to center your attention. Use your senses of temperature and sound. So go and listen for the sounds outside the room that you're meditating in. And get a sense of the temperature out there. Probably quite chilly today. Then bring your attention into the room you're meditating in and listen for any sounds emanating from the room you're sitting in. And get a sense of the temperature in here, hopefully warmer. And then bring your attention right in and find your breath and attach your attention to your breath and listen as you breathe to the sound that your breath makes as you breathe in and you breathe out. And become curious about whether the temperature of the air that you breathe in and the temperature of the air that you breathe out, it changes, doesn't it? The out breath tends to be warmer air because it's circulated and warmed. Now I'm going to ask you to just let go of that attention for the breath and imagine a ship on a very, very placid, calm sea. A bit like when we're having a day when there is no stress, when we're coasting, when we're not worrying about what might happen or dwelling on what has occurred. So it's one of those days when we're just relaxed and doing great. And then something happens. And now switch, and we notice that that ship that we were visualizing is now found itself among very stormy and difficult seas. And because it's in the middle of this difficult storm, what we need to do is we need to find safety. We need to find security. We need to stop. And one way to do that is to imagine that what we do is we drop anchor, and the anchor goes to the bottom of the sea and lodges itself and holds us strongly, permanently. And we find that sense that it doesn't matter that this is a bit of a difficult time I'm going through, because I can anchor my attention to my breath in the same way that the ship uses its ship's anchor to steady it and to create a sense of security and safety. We just very gently, very, very gently, we ask ourselves to find the breath and to anchor our attention to the breath. And if we hear sounds outside, or if our mind becomes distracted, we just gently bring it back and we find our breath again. And we anchor all of our attention only on the breath. We're not interested in sounds or thoughts or feelings. We are just steadying ourselves by attending and anchoring our attention to the breath. And as we sit and we breathe, just like you to visualize that stormy sea and the sense that although the boat is rocked and buffeted by the stormy sea, we're safe and we're secure, and we can wait for the difficult time to subside. Because one of the truths that we find through mindfulness is this too shall pass. So what you're going through in this moment now might feel terribly stressful. But if we drop anchor and we sit and we hold our attention with our breath, using our breath as our anchor that is always there for us. And as we sit and we wait, just like a storm, the sun comes back out, the waves calm, and we find ourselves safe, secure, and calm again. When you're ready, very gently open your eyes and come back to the room. So I hope you found that useful. And this is one of those lovely ones that you really don't need a script for. You just need to stop yourself, smile, and say, oh gosh, today is a bit mad. Today is quite scary. Today is too busy. Find somewhere quiet. Stop. Anchor yourself to your breath by just focusing on the breathing. And visualize in your mind's eye that ship on a stormy sea. and wait and breathe until calm descends once more. The drop anchor meditation. So I hope that's helped you understand a little bit more about how we can use mindfulness, a bit more about what mindfulness actually is. And my plea is keep practicing, go explore this stuff. Have a look at the apps that are out there, the Calm app, maybe. Maybe have a look at Headspace. Have a look at Paloo's mindfulness. They're all online, and you can find some great ways to start using mindfulness to get through stormy times. Thank you. I'll just go to here and say goodbye. Thank you very much.